Paul here from My Perfect Failure, where we bring you real life stories that turn your failures into successes and your setbacks into opportunities. We've all heard the saying, failure is the mother of success, but what does it really take to turn failure into stepping stones? Today's guest brings first-hand experience navigating it all from the corporate and legal worlds to launching his own ventures, facing setbacks and making comebacks along the way. Discover how he channeled those experiences to build a successful business and publish his first book, The Eagle and the Cockerel. Tune in to uncover the mindset and strategies that made it all possible and learn how you can do exactly the same.
Who knows what Jay-Z, J.K. Rowling, Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey all have in common? Okay, I will tell you then. They have all overcome failure in one shape or form to go on to gain success in their respective careers. Welcome to My Perfect Failure. Join us as we delve into the world of our perfect failures. We will interview, explore and discuss how our perfect failures can lead us to success. Join us and tune in.
Welcome everybody to another episode of My Perfect Failure. Today I'm super excited because I have another amazing guest for you. So our guest today was born in Genoa, Italy, as a former journalist, now residing in the UK. After living in Milan, he moved to London, where he penned his debut novel, The Eagle and the Cockerel. The fast-paced political intrigue novel is inspired by German Chancellor Konrad Adenauer, might need correction on his surname, a 1950 proposal to merge France and Germany. The book explores themes of political ambition, inner conflict, and societal fears set against the backdrop of current events like Brexit, the war in Ukraine, rising populism. He is currently working on his second book. So a very warm welcome to My Perfect Failure, Alan Rhode. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for having me here today.
You're very welcome. I'm super excited to have a conversation with you because as I was researching you, I was intrigued by, there's lots of stuff going on here. So you're from Italy, Genoa, lots of different career paths. You've got the journalism, you've got the law, you've got the authorship, you've got the entrepreneurial stuff going on. When I was thinking last night, I was thinking, is Alan a bit of a searcher, someone that, I don't know, I guess we're all searchers to a degree, but I guess some of us more than others.
Like everybody, I specialize in my personal story. So
Yeah.
I think I can answer all questions. Yes, I believe in the idea of trial and error, and which is quite a mantra in the United States, for instance, probably in the UK, not really in Italy, where I come from. So in Italy, failure is a stigma, is something you need to avoid. While in the US, or I mean, probably more broadly in the Anglo-Saxon world, failing is like a child, a toddler who is stumbling on something and probably resumes walking. In Italy, it's a bit different, but I never had fear of failure because my ambition to reach my goals is stronger than the fear of failure. And I had my setbacks, and I think we can talk about them in depth today. But I'm still going on, and I had some pleasant experiences in business and in writing books.
Okay. I love everything you just said there.
Thank you.
I love the idea that your ambitions, I'm not going to paraphrase this correctly, but you said something around your ambitions or your goals are more powerful than your fear of failure. And I think that's something that definitely inspires me. And I think it's something that's really admirable for all of us, because I think you talk about Italy when you say that failure is a stigma. And I think failure and fear hold so many of us back. So where did that come from? Have you always had that approach to fear and goals and letting your goals trump fear?
I I've always been daydreaming in a positive way. So when Novak Djokovic says that he was like 7 years old and he was in Serbia during the civil war and he was mimicking the great players in front of a mirror, I was by and large in a similar situation. I've always been daydreaming, and it's something that rewarding and is an important component of my life. I probably started quite late as an entrepreneur and as a writer, so I'm trying to hurry up. But yes, it's part of me trying to overcome my fears. I have fears, but I try to overcome them. I want to say that some people probably they are not fit to become entrepreneurs. I have brilliant friends, and they told me clearly, very, very clever people. They told me, I'm not, I like to belong to an organization, but not being at the top or not creating a new organization on my own, a new business on my own. So I think it's extremely subjective. Some people are risk prone, some people are probably a bit more risk averse. As an entrepreneur, you are always risking. Even if you have a small off license, or if you create a giant conglomerate, you're always risking. In general, I think you're always risking in life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing about entrepreneurship, which people that I know that are entrepreneurs, they like the idea of having, well, I guess when I say have control to a degree, because there's always challenges that you experience as an entrepreneur, but it's that strategic play where they can set the navigation or the sat nav in terms of where they're going, and also they've got the freedom to not be bound by maybe working for an employer where everything's pretty much preconditioned and you don't really our opportunity to put our input in where it's actually listened to can be limited dependent on the type of business you work for. What I was keen for the audience to get a sense of, we had a little chat before we hit the record button, and I was intrigued by your journey from being a lawyer to journalism, and obviously that's led into entrepreneurship and obviously authorship. Can you tell us a little bit about being a lawyer and maybe that journey into journalism and maybe to London actually?
Oh, yes, it's a long story, but I will try to compress it. So I grew up in Genoa, and that's where I got my law degree. And Genoa is the opposite of London, probably, is a more is a chilled out on the coast of northern Italy. It's the city with the highest average age in Europe, or probably in the world. So you see the majority of the population are senior citizens.
Okay.
It's very different from London and the vibe we have here. So I got my law degree. I wasn't a bit unsure. I decided, okay, I'm gonna start the legal career, but in Milan, which is nicknamed as the Italian Big Apple, because it's all social life, business, fashion. And I joined I know, 3 or 4 major tax and law firms, American ones, because I was inspired by the kind of American glittering. But I had to face reality in the sense that it was very top to down, top to bottom, sorry, kind of environment, very vertical. It was a long journey. It was around the time of the financial crisis, so fewer clients. I wasn't very happy. In the meanwhile, while graduating, I became a journalist as a side kind of activity by writing for a major Italian financial newspaper. I was writing pieces on the northwest of Italy, so Genoa, Turin, Val d'Aosta, quite a wealthy area of the country. But I wasn't happy about journalism either because I didn't feel free. So I became a lawyer in Milan, but I wasn't very happy because of the environment. I didn't belong to that environment. And one day I met a person who then became a close friend and is still a close friend to this day. And he was starting from London, a social recommendation platform. It was a multi-level. It was a platform that rewarded people for recommending products they had tried. So the idea was to have brand evangelists. And that's when I started to slowly move towards London. It wasn't immediate. So it was around 2012, and then I settled in London in 2015. So there was a period where I basically slept on my friend's spare room here. It was in Richmond, where I now live. And we started this business, and I was told, as I told you during our little chat, I made all of the possible rookie mistakes, all the possible startup mistakes. The biggest mistake was not knowing the core of the business. And the core of the business was the digital industry and software programming. And I always make this analogy. If you have never set foot in a kitchen, how can you open a restaurant? Yes, you can do it, but you will rely on a cook. However, if you're running a restaurant, you can still check whether the recipe are good, or if you see that the kitchen is a mess, probably something bad is going on. But in IT and in software coding, it's a black hole. So you are unable to check how a process is going and the operations. So to cut it short, but not too short, we never really launched. I mean, we stood 2 years programming with many false starts. I squandered quite an amount of money. I prefer not to think about it. And but it was the germ. It gave me an opportunity, because the second business I launched, and that allowed me to merge my passion for IT with my tax knowledge, and which is still the business that nowadays brings food to my table. Taxmen is called. So I chose this kind of superhero name, even if it's a very serious area of activity like tax. And it's a business where we do all the tax and legal for online stores. That's the connection with my passion for the digital industry. I started around 2012, but actually the first clients arrived later on, and we have already celebrated 10 years and more of trade. And but in the meanwhile, I also tried another business, an online wine store, and it failed. Although in this case, luckily, I didn't waste much money. And then I'm going too fast, or
No, no, I'm enjoying the narrative of your story. Fascinating.
then, because we have a team of 8 people with Taxmen, which is the only surviving business of all the one that I tried, it has allowed me to write and publish a book, The Eagle and the Cockerel, the book you were, thank you, mentioning before and describing. And because I had the chance of carving out a couple of hours every day, I have 2 little children, two boys, 3 and 5 years old. So early morning, which is the best moment to write, is ruled out because they wake up at 6, or even earlier sometimes. So evenings, I want to spend some time with my wife. So the business has allowed me to get some free time. But
Yeah.
this after 10 years. So the first 8, 10 years, I was focusing only on my business. That's why I had a couple of false starts with the book. The idea of a book came to me in 2015, and I tried a couple of times to start, but I felt I owed a duty of attention to my business.
Mm.
And then in 2020, and it's completely regardless of the COVID, I said, okay, it's now or never. I was already in my mid-40s. If I don't start now publishing books, and I sometimes I think major authors, they publish their first book when they were in their 20s or 30s, but luckily I found some good benchmarks that they start very late, And one of my favorite authors, Umberto Eco, is Italian, and he published a very popular book, The Name of a Rose, that sold more than 50 million copies, and they made a full film with Sean Connery. He started at age 50. So, and there are many other authors, Isabella Allende, there are many authors who published their debut novel when they were in the 40s. And now I'm in a situation where I have a goal to become an established writer and being able to focus all my day, the mornings writing, the afternoon doing research, watching movies, or doing other stuff. And that's a privilege that you can reach, and only people read your books.
Yeah.
So yes, it's quite a trajectory, but I enjoyed doing different things.
Okay. Love the story, the journey. Maybe that might be a book one day where you actually put all that together.
But I need to become very successful, otherwise it's gonna be boring reading.
Well, I'm sure it'd be great
You need the
reading.
happy. We need the happy ending as a writer.
To this point, clearly it's a happy ending because it's going in the right direction.
Yes.
The fact that you're able to fulfill a dream, one of your dreams, and actually, I guess a lot of dreams you're fulfilling. You've got your own business. You're blending the law with your business. Got that independent. You're living in London. You're living in Richmond, lovely, amazing area. Got your first book out. There's another book on the way. You've navigated the challenges that all entrepreneurs suffer, which is setbacks, failures, whatever you want to call it. Just around that, when you were suffering those difficult, I want to talk about the book as well, so we will do that.
Mm.
But when you were experiencing those difficult moments, particularly the first business,
Mm.
and when you moved to London, then there was a second business. What did you have to draw on to move beyond the setbacks and actually get up and go again?
I think it's gonna be a very dry answer. I didn't have any choice.
Okay.
For me, the toughest period was in Milan because I moved from one firm to the other. In some cases, I was fired, let's face it. And funny enough,
Mm,
when I found another lawyer that I got along with, he lost all his clients, not on account of my work, but because he made a poor choice in one sense. I'm not going to dwell on this.
mm,
But really, when I decided to move to the UK and I started a business that I shouldn't have started, let alone fund it, it was because I really needed fresh air.
mm,
So when I was in London, yes, it was difficult, even from a human standpoint with my business partner of the time, even we are still friends. But it was still, I mean, it was London. It
mm,
was having this tiny, tiny office, which is the size of my garden studio, or even less, in Chiswick, in a nice park with the ducks and the ponds, and live in London, going out with him in the evening, etc., etc. So it was less difficult than feeling that you are not employing your life properly, as I was doing in Milan,
mm,
or let alone the university in Genoa. So I felt an improvement. I really wanted to get acquainted with London. It's my favorite city. It has everything for me. And I made it. So, and without this failed business, I wouldn't have had the connections that allowed to me within the digital industry that allowed me to start Taxmen, which is the business still running to these days. I mean, the more people you know, I mean, relations are everything. And the more people you met, the more you stumble your head. You can't hurt yourself, really. Of course, there are economic ramifications, but in the end, I need to the rush, I need to feel the energy, the movement,
the
and
adrenaline.
yes, in a part of my life, I think I made a mistake. I was like living in a pond close to a river, a streaming river, and then I joined the river.
Mm.
And so I grew up on a seaside town, so probably the metaphor is unavoidable. And the one business, it was unsuccessful, but I met who I call now my best friend, one of my best friends. So it's all worth doing it, not redoing it, but
Mm,
doing it. And so the UK, I'm a UK citizen by birth, but it still is the country that has allowed me to thrive
mm,
personally. And it's tough. London is tough. I think the gap between people who have and people who don't have is growing. You can feel
mm,
there is a bit of greed around. Uh, and it's compared to Italy, I think London is more like the US. Sink, sw swim or sink.
yeah, absolutely.
Italy is more protective, but is also more conservative. And it's a country made of small towns.
Yeah.
It's cultural wealth is less London centric than the UK. But this country, I repeat, has allowed me to. It's my own. It's the right place for me, as a friend said.
Mm,
No
yeah.
doubt about that.
Yeah. So with when I think about entrepreneurship, and as you were talking earlier, I was thinking about all the different things you have to learn, and I guess it's a continued process. So when you work for a company, when you're in a law firm, there's a lot of structure there. But when you start your own business, there's heaps you have to learn. You've got to learn about your product, you've got to learn about your audience, you've got to learn about the marketing, you've got to learn about the finance, you've got to learn about the sales. Your approach to, I guess, knitting all that together. For you, was it, I guess we talk about experimentation, trial and error. Was there, is it being comfortable with that try and error, sorry, and having the dedication to just getting on with it and being willing to learn and not being put off by the inevitable mistakes that entrepreneurs will experience?
I made a joke with you before the podcast that I would probably write a thick pamphlet on
Okay,
the
yeah.
mistakes that shouldn't be made. I would probably do it eventually. I see that many comments. I reach a point where I don't think I'm a shark like the TV show, but I can spot the weaknesses of many businesses, especially startups. Sometimes I can see them, they're overly ambitious, or there is not enough money to reach their goals. And because I made those mistakes. So for instance, now I'm helping my wife. She has her own startup because she saw a gap in the market. She loves fashion, and it's very difficult in the UK to find Italian silk or linen or cotton scarves because of Brexit. They are usually too pricey. So she has started an e-commerce site. She took some stock from Italy. She has brought it here, and I told her it's gonna be hard and it's not easy. It's still at a very early stage, but you have a product, you have the price. You as a person, I believe in you because she's driven, really. Uh, that's good.
Mm,
Good. I think one a very important key is the human relationship within a business. I noticed that some major entrepreneurs, they can pick the right people. They can motivate them. Strange enough, it seems that Steve Jobs was not very good at that, but some of the people I will mention, if you ask me, source of inspirations, are very good at managing people,
yeah.
are playing their strength and delegating. Some entrepreneurs I work with, they wouldn't trust other people, which is a huge mistake.
Mm,
Let everyone take care of their own area. Of course, there must be a boss, let's call it, someone who is overseeing everything, who is taking responsibility, who is leading by example, but you need to trust.
and is that something that you've had to learn at? Because I know now you've got staff, so you've had to learn to get, I guess, as good as you possibly can at hiring the right staff and then giving them the freedom to be great at what you've hired them to do?
Yes, for instance, I have a great team, and they all know each other from previous working experiences, which is good. I made my mistake. For instance, once I hired an intern from China. She had studied in the UK, but it was clear that she would have left us uh, for a larger business, and that's what happened early, quite soon. But I like the idea of having a Mandarin speaking person
Mm,
within the team. She had a short experience with Amazon. So, and that was a mistake, but it was clear. I mean,
yeah.
most mistakes you can understand with hindsight, but you can understand why you made them. And now we have a team. It's not a large business; it's a small-sized business, but we all know each other, and there is a complete trust. As I said before, I was able to write a book because I was happy with delegating
Mm,
part of the business, but I haven't lost sight. I still dedicate most of the day to the business that is bringing food on my table. But I'm also trying to pursue this writing career, which makes me happy when I wake up and I'm going to bed,
okay.
alongside my family, of course. But
Yeah. And it's amazing. I do love that answer because I think it's, they say you only live once.
mhm.
And because I think sometimes we can wait for that perfect moment. And for a business to write a book, there never is a perfect moment. When you were talking about authors that have created books that are at a in their 40s, I was thinking about one of my favorite authors, Stephen Pressfield, and he started at a similar age to you, maybe a little bit older, and he's having a great run. So yeah, so I do think that there's never an ideal moment. We just have to crack on with it. One of your quotes, I was listening to one of your interviews, I think it was last night. I think it was last night. And I think I wrote something down, which was I thought was great. You said something along the lines, we have to be brave to inspire. I mean, you might not be able to remember that, but you said that. So I like that analogy. It smacks at, it just gives us that energy, that adrenaline to actually think about what is it we want to do. If we want to be impactful, not just to us, but to other people, then we've got an opportunity to be brave.
Yeah, I think your passion for your goals probably makes you brave and allows you to go on, even if you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, this concept of a tunnel and the light at the end of a tunnel, which is cliche, but it's a pattern, the situation we all experience. I think in the end, you need to like what you do. If you like what you do, you accept the setback, and you try to learn to improve. And I like tennis. I was at Wimbledon yesterday, and I always think at all the work that is behind skills of these sports women and sportsmen. So, and it's the same on everything. It's working. I don't know whether it's true that you need 10,000 hours to acquire a skill, but certainly it's a matter of working. And I think it's curious how you can improve in something, right? By doing it, by uh, repetition, basically.
Yeah. And also, I think enjoying it as well. Ideally, I think we need to get some enjoyment out of
Yeah.
whatever it is, because the challenging moments are clearly going to be severe. But if we enjoy it, it kind of makes sense. The pain makes sense. And Djokovic, you mentioned Novak earlier. So he's talked fascinatingly about the process to get to the point where he excels. It's all that preparation, it's that mental side. There's a lot going on
I'm
there.
envious of his willpower,
Hmm.
especially because I like to drink wine. I'm Italian after all, so he has an enormous willpower.
Yeah.
I don't think I have the same willpower, especially with food and drink, but clearly, he's an outstanding kind
Hmm.
of person. Many people don't like him. Okay, he's not very funny. You can see he's quite temperamental, but uh, he has an astonishing career,
Hmm.
and it's all based on work.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no more room for, like George Best in football, um, for talent and being unruly at the same time. Now the competition is so high everywhere in sports too, that you need to be very self-disciplined.
Yeah, I like him. I like all those guys around Djokovic, Federer, Nadal, Murray.
Mm,
I think he gets a difficult rap at times. But I think sometimes he is quite funny.
mm.
But when he's on the court, sometimes he can be funny. But he wants to win, and he's done a great job at doing that. I think he's won the most Grand Slams to date.
I don't know if you follow tennis so closely, but now we have great Italians. After 30 years, we have the number one in the world is Italian.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, Yannick Sinner, yes. He grew up in my wife's same in the region where my wife grew up, which is close to Austria. That's why he has a surname that doesn't sound Italian, and he doesn't look Italian at all. Yeah, he's pale, thin, with red hair. And another Italian, a girl, Paolini, Jasmine Paolini, reached the final, and she's gonna play this weekend in Wimbledon. So it's a great moment for Italian tennis. I've been asked why. I think many parents got a bit frustrated with football because of some scandals, because it's overexposed in Italy. For a period, we had football matches every evening on TV. So many parents are probably shifted their children towards tennis.
Yeah.
I believe that's the difference. And but the reality is that it's a great season. It's a great era for Italian tennis.
Okay, so we'll talk about the book now. So I want to talk about the book, but I was intrigued about how you became aware of Conrad. I'm not going to. I'll let you pronounce his surname, Conrad.
Had an hour.
Yeah. How did you become aware of him?
I was doing some research. I don't know why, but I think I found out I was going to the library of the London School of Economics. I don't know how I managed to get the card to access the library, but I was there. I love libraries,
Mm.
especially this type of library because it's not stuffy. It's a wonderful architecture. It's like a spiral, and I found this information that the Chancellor Adenauer, you need to imagine him. I'm a writer, so I need to describe him properly. That it was very austere. He didn't speak much. Um, he was not in search of sound bites like it happens nowadays. So, and he said in an interview to an American news outlet, he said, "I think Germany and France, sorry, should unify in a single country." He wasn't thinking at the European Union. He was thinking uh, at a single country. And you probably say, it's unbelievable, especially given the tough relationship between France and Germany over the centuries. But it was after World War II. Germany was at the risk of seeing her industries dismantled. It was under the influence of Allied powers. So France was in tatters. So it was a way out, not the most pleasant way out I can imagine for a German chancellor. And he repeated the same concept 2 weeks later because, of course, the journalist spotted the news, so he wanted another interview. But strange enough, you don't find it in history books and you don't find it on the net. I don't know how I stumbled into this piece of news. And I said, that's reality, that when it's even better than fantasy, right? And I said, let's imagine a referendum. Brexit was approaching. It was before Brexit. Let's imagine a referendum. And then I said, okay, but let's think of a more innovative kind of doing a referendum, a social media poll, which will be not legally binding, but of course it's going to have an influence. So you need a very, very large social media. So I came up with the idea of Rome. It's called Rome. German social media with ties, clear ties with the German government. And the story began to grow. And I wanted, the goal for my book was actually to write down, let's say, I want to simplify, the main reason for a further European integration, so a European dream by one side, and an opposing idea, so dismantling the European Union, as many people from the right would like to do. And so I have two opposing characters, Vincent Damon, an egocentric, flamboyant former Paris mayor, who is the one who came up with the idea of a referendum to save his own career in the first place, because he had been involved in a scandal. And then you have Miss Cliché, also known as Lucia. She's an Italian vlogger living in Birmingham who has created a very famous blog centered on fighting fake news. So she's obsessed with fact checking. She's almost fussy, if we can make a joke. So the two opposing characters, and then one of my first editors told me, Alan, be careful. The idea of a book is great, but don't focus the book only on politics. Politics must stay in the background. The characters and the plot should be at the center of the story, which is what I've done. And I found a publisher, uh, although it's a very peculiar publisher because I retain the rights. I've been funding the book. It's not vanity. It's a team of people from the major uh, publishers in London who started the trade 10 years ago. And I dream to have a cover author, a designer, Nathan Barton, who is one of the greatest in the UK. I've been pursuing him, chasing him, courting him for a while without success. But when my publisher stepped in, he accepted to doing the artwork that viewers can
I'm looking
see.
at the artwork now on my other laptop. I love the art. I was looking at it last night. I love the artwork.
Yeah, ask him, let's have in a very visual cover. Let's have in the eagle, which is the symbol of Germany, and the cockerel, the symbol of France, opposing. And please, I told him, be careful because the cockerel mustn't look like a chicken, which is always
Yeah,
risky. And he did it. I love the cover.
yeah,
I hope for my next book that I can have, which I'm trying to publish before the end of 2025, which will not be on politics, it's going to be a bit different. It will be more dystopian. I hope he will join us and perform and have a great work.
yeah, yeah. No, I love the cover and the artwork. As again, I'm looking at it now. So in relation to, I guess, the protagonist and the concept, I guess moving towards now. So that's, is it set in the future? I guess it's set in the future because you're talking about social media.
Yes,
You're taking the concept that Comrade thought about all those years ago, and you're bringing it to the current day where social media is relevant and referendums are relevant, and maybe that clearly there were things that weren't. Maybe referendums were around then. I don't know.
yes, it's a social media appeal. I mean, electronic voting is already in place in some places. So I thought it's going to be a social media vote, non-binding, but nevertheless relevant because the social media platform Rome has become in the book one of the major platforms in the world. So it's the European response to China and the US. That's something interesting, I think, because still to this day, Europe is in between, is sandwiched in between the US and China in terms of platforms. So it's this new platform, which is a platform that is a social media, it's a marketplace, it's everything basically. It's called Rome, and it's based in Berlin. So one thing about I like about the book, and I really wanted to do it, is to have the scene changing from the setting changing from France, Paris, of course, Berlin, Birmingham. Why Birmingham? Because it's a growing tech hub, and it's not London. So I wanted to change location for a while. Then there is a bit in Milan. It's traveling around Europe, and uh, and I really like to learn things about Paris, to learn about Berlin, and some ideas they come up thanks to Google Maps because I know Berlin, I know Paris, but some ideas at a certain point I was experiencing a very short creative rut, as they call it, rut, and I took Google Maps and I started hovering around the Seine, around central Paris, I found a building with a peculiar history. I don't want to spoil it. And chapter 3 was
Mm.
burned. Yes, it's called flaneuse, chapter 3. And flaneuse is a noun, is a word used to define those who like to stroll around Paris without aim, just for the sake of strolling around Paris, which I know what how do you feel? And so it's very rewarding for me to write. Writing means opening a new dimension. You can either call it escaping life, but I prefer amplifying life,
Mm.
which is what you do. I mean, when you watch tennis match, it's not a reality. It's people following a ball, but because there is a competition, it's a different window during in your life. I mean, you you imagine a fight made with tennis balls, and the same movies, music, theater. We need to amplify life. We need to have our corner, probably every day, where we are not where we are.
Mm.
We are not in our room. We are not walking in our neighborhood. We are somewhere else. And this is what writing for me is this. I mean,
And
Robert, the same for you. Your podcast is your moment of where you basically change your hat, right? Or
mm,
I don't know what. I'm not the interviewer, so I'm interviewed right now. But we all need a bit of fresh air, I think.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's nice to have that outlet, that ability to be creative and create something where you can put it out. You can put out content for a variety of reasons. It can be entertainment, it can be educational, it can inspire, it might do all of those things. It can be for a number of different reasons. And just with your book, it's great that it's a story, but there's some really relevant elements about Europe and about, I guess, Europe connecting or not connecting those, I guess, removing some of the dogma that exists within Europe where there's a disconnect. Are those themes that you wanted to tackle or maybe inspire thought or debate?
Because of the Brexit experience, I observed that the role of Europe wasn't properly appreciated.
Mm,
So the Brexit was what Europe is giving to the UK and what the UK is giving to Europe. And a clear example of this mindset is you remember and it was a fake news, talking about fake news, that by leaving the European Union, the UK would have gained more money for NHS.
yeah.
In my opinion, and this is expressed in the book, and I don't hear so many people expressing this view, the matter is how strong can we be all together, 27 countries, there used to be 28, instead of being by ourselves when it comes to protecting the environment, trying to regulate the digital world, trying to not impose our culture, but we need to be aware that the Anglo-Western world, and I know it's a complicated word to explain, but has its own principles, the rule of law, equal opportunities. They can be challenged at times, even internally. But some huge countries outside of the EU, China, India, many African countries, they have different ideas on democracy and so on. We need to be strong together and not trying to do things separately because it's not going to work. So, but nobody said this during the Brexit
Correct. Yeah.
campaign. And so one of the main goals of my book is to express this concept. And it's not the narrator, but it's Miss Cliché, Lucia, the blogger, that express her own views. And I think it's, judging from the 8 messages that I see on my social media, I wouldn't call them hate, but one was very funny. I'm supposed to be a Remoaner about Europe instead of Remainer
We
because
don't know.
it's a funny joke.
Yeah,
Uh, I think Brexit is still a nerve in this country, and it will be for a long time.
I think always. I think always. I think it was a huge faux pas. It was a huge error. I know people that voted
I know them,
Remain
yeah.
and they regretted it. They didn't really know what they were doing. They kind of, to your point, there was a lot of untruths. There was a lot of rhetoric out there that I don't think people really thought. I don't think people really thought about, because I think there's a power in referendums, but I almost think that you almost need to do a test before you can actually be qualified to actually
I know.
vote or make a decision, because we don't know the ramifications. We don't know what we're doing essentially. Yeah, so I've definitely had conversations with people that voted to to leave, and afterwards, like now, they would never make that decision again, but too late now.
Yeah, for instance, now we have a new, in Italy, there is this constitutional reform that has been approved or is in the process of being approved and is heavily criticized by all the experts. And what the politicians who have put forward this proposal, it's the current cabinet, they say, okay, people will vote on it because in this case, the country will be called to vote in it. But let's face it, you wouldn't ask people to vote on a budget law. You wouldn't ask people to vote on a healthcare reform. Why people should vote on a constitutional reform? So regarding Brexit, you could probably say, yes, Brexit referendum was on the sense of belonging, right, to Europe. So probably it's right that there was a referendum, but still the ramifications were unknown at the time to most politicians, let alone people. But we need to respect this vote and and move on. But because I don't want other European countries to make the same
Hmm.
decision, right or wrong, uh, I wrote the book, and probably for all those countries within the euro currency, it's tougher to make this decision. And but of course, if France and Germany decided to unify in a single country, what would they do? Maybe decide to go by themselves. The aggregated GDPR and the population would be huge. So why keep Spain to subsidize Eastern European countries?
Hmm.
So that's part of the fiction in the book. Some people, it's funny, I love one person yesterday. I was looking on the social media and he found my book in a proof copy version, which was not meant for resale, at a charity store for £1, and he has read the book. This guy has clearly Italian roots, but I think but judging by the name, and he said, I like it, etc., etc. And of course, this makes me proud. But I also like the idea of finding the book in a charity store, a proof copy that was not meant for resale. And so I think it's a controversial. Brexit will be controversial for a while. And the European Union is easy to be criticized because it's not
Hmm.
going to answer. So
Hmm.
there is room for improvement within the EU, especially when it comes to foreign policies. Even if, with respect to Ukraine, for instance, it was quite the response was quite homogeneous. And what makes the EU unique is growing from within. Many competences and powers of the European Union were grown from within. So it's very peculiar, and not all people understand the journey. I mean, what is around now 80 years almost since when the European community was born. And the book, as I told you, there is a lot of plot and introspection, but in the background you have politics.
Yeah, so it's lovely that you've managed to mesh them together.
Very
And
difficult, yeah.
yeah, which is it's a great, it must be very rewarding and very pleasing that you're able to look at creativity, plots with politics, serious business, and important stuff as well. And I think as you were talking, I was thinking about, I won't go on about this, but I think with Brexit and some of the other things that have happened, where there is an opportunity to learn. As you pointed out, it's done now. We have to respect it. We've got to move
Yes.
on. But it's good if we point out that there were lessons or there are lessons, and that's the important stuff that we learn from things that may could have been done better. So for people that are keen to get the book, I'm going to put a link to the show notes on the book. But is there a way that people can contact you if they want to? Maybe you mentioned social media. Can people, if they get the book, where's the best place for them
Yeah,
to reach out to you,
I'm
leave
on
comments?
Twitter, on Facebook, and there is my own website, which is you can probably Alan score road.com, which you can find. You can find more information about the book, and there is an email address you can use to contact our team. And I'm always happy to hear from people. And nowadays, social media is an important component, even
Mm,
for authors. You used to be quite loners, but now is an important way of interacting. So I'm
yeah.
very happy if someone wants to drop me a line. Yeah.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Well, most of those details I've got, so I'll definitely put everything on the show notes. If not, I'll reach out to your team and I'll get those any
Thank you.
additional links or anything. And so, final question, which is the recurring question. So,
Hmm.
if you could invite three inspirational people for dinner, they can be alive or past. Who might you invite?
Oh yeah, I love this question. And so I'm going in chronological order. The first one is the English actor Cary Grant,
Okay, yeah.
because he has incredible kind of story, because he was born in Bristol. He never saw his mother. He thought she was dead, but she has been institutionalized.
Mm,
The father was very absent, and Cary joined, I think, some theater troupe when he was 13 years old. He began wandering around the UK, and then he took a ship and reached the US, and the rest is history.
mm,
I like the idea of, I mean, you have pain here, clearly, uncertainty, but you have movement, and you have a happy ending, even if his private life, especially he had many wives, wasn't
mm.
probably so charming as he was
On
in
screen.
movies. But
Amazing
I like the
actor.
story, and he was amazing actor. And I found this video where actually his audio where Michael Caine talks about Cary Grant. I think it's probably a piece of the audiobook from Michael Caine memoir, and he was a real gentleman. He was a real gentleman. So probably I like him for the story, for his Britishness. This is the number one. Number two, more
I love
predict.
this.
Number two, more predictable. I'm going in chronological order. Is Richard Branson.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. I like most of all his shift from music to different industries.
Mm,
I like because he started with a magazine at school, then he had his own record company, then he made this bold move. You probably say, are you crazy? Trying to start an airline in an age, the early 80s, when it was all major airlines.
BA.
It was not an EasyJet,
Yeah.
Ryanair, Virgin, of course, not yet. It was all British Airways or Alitalia or Swissair or Air France. So I like him for the shift from music to airlines. The third, a bit more, is the co-founder of Kiss, the rock band, Paul Stanley. I love rock music, and I love Kiss in particular, because he was born without one ear.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, so he's deaf from one ear in a very dysfunctional family. Yeah, I think he had this sister with mental issues and drug addiction, and was the less likely to succeed as a rock star. He was overweight. He published a wonderful memoir in 2014, and he became who is now. So the trade union, I see all of them worked in art. Cary Grant as an actor, and Branson and Stanley in music.
Mm.
And they are all self-made, and I like them as persons in general. Cary Grant less because, but to reach, I know less about him personally, of course, given the period in which he lived. But Branson and Stanley, they wrote a wonderful memoir. So my source of inspiration are these three artists and businessmen at the same time.
Yeah, that would be a phenomenal dinner. Phenomenal dinner.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think I would speak. I think they were all talk. They are all talkative. So
Mm. Yeah. It's fascinating what you
you
would
can join
cover.
us. You can join us.
I would like if you do it in Richmond, then it'd be a stone's throw away.
Yeah,
I would
true.
like, no, I'd love to do that. I'm a huge fan. Paul Stanley, I don't know as much, but I'm definitely a firm fan of Branson and Cary Grant. Big fan of his movies. That North by Northwest was on the other day, so I was going out so I didn't get to watch it, but I'm a big fan of Cary Grant and his movies. Alan, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so
We're
much.
really, excited to talk to you. Really, I love your journey, all the things that you've done, like from it's just really interesting stuff, from being a lawyer, working in Milan, to the journalism, to finding your own lane, to the entrepreneurship, and now authorship. So I'm intrigued to hear about what your book will be next year. So definitely, if you're available, let's have another conversation when that book comes
You
out.
can
That'd be
come to the
amazing.
presentation. If we do a presentation, I will invite you.
I would love to. I would love to.
In
I'd love
Richmond,
to.
of course.
In Richmond, yeah, Stones. I'll bring my friend Stuart along. I think he'd love it as well. So, Adam,
Thank you
thank you
so
so.
much for your time. It was a very nice experience sharing my life, part of my life with you.
No, lovely. No, no, a real pleasure. And again, let's stay in touch and let's have more conversations.
Bye bye.
And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this episode of My Perfect Failure. We're always looking to grow the show. So if you aren't watching on YouTube, please do hit the subscribe button. It really does help us grow the channel. And your feedback is most welcome. So we're keen to hear about the things you like and equally the things you don't like. So you can find me at Paul at myperfectfailure.com, or you can find me via the feedback page on the website. So take care for now. Bye.
Thanks for listening to My Perfect Failure podcast. Be sure to visit www.myperfectfailure.com to join the conversation. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play. Look out for our next episode.